Hi everybody, it's Dean again. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about polyamory or consensual non-monogamy. Me and my partners have gotten a lot of questions recently about polyamory, and so I thought I would take some time to answer some of those questions that we got. Um, so let's see, I have it all written down so I don't forget anything or anybody because there was more questions than I thought there was going to be. One of the questions I got was from Myrna, a friend of, I hope I'm saying that right, a friend of my wife's, and she asked, how were you able to open up about being poly? I'm afraid to tell my family and I'm poly and pan. Um, so I have a unique answer for that. I feel like for me and my significant others, we have very different relationships with our family. For the last almost 3 years, come July, my biological parents will not have been in my life. So they weren't really a factor as far as coming out and being open about being poly. Um, Her parents are aware of our situation, and I'll get to that in a second. And so is my husband's, his parents and his family know about our situation as well, and his whole family kind of knows. And so the answer to your question about being open and being poly, really what it came down to is us as a unit. So it was about what was best for us, what made us happiest. So that didn't mean necessarily, it wasn't about setting our families down and coming out about it or being open about it and focusing on that aspect of our relationship. Instead, we just focused on how we wanted to treat each other and how we wanted to show our love for each other and respect each other. And we focused on just our small group. So our sons and each other. And so we showed each other the same amount of affection we would show each other if everyone knew. We never hid how we felt about each other. We made it very clear when there were family functions involving my husband's family that our wife was part of that family, that she's going to go where we go, we're going to go where she goes, and if she's not included, then we're not included. And we just focused it on doing things that way. So I don't know if that makes sense. Basically, we just didn't hide it, and we made it very clear that we care about each other, that we love each other, all three of us, and that all three of us are the parents to our two kids, and that um, the happiness and mental well-being of our family, like our tiny little unit, was more important to us than acceptance from anyone else. And so that kind of left the other people that we were open around. It put that decision in their court now, because now it's up to them to either accept that or not accept that. And that's their cross to bear, not ours anymore. If somebody can't support your happiness or how you feel, then they're probably not worth having in your life. And that can be very hard, like especially if it's a family member or more specifically your parents. That's hard. And it's easier said than done. And it's something that only you can make that decision, and only you can really decide how you want to come out about your feelings and how you feel. But you have to remember that at the end of the day, you want to try and do what you are going to be proud of. Because at some point during the day, you're going to be by yourself. You're going to be by yourself alone, and you need to know and believe in the decisions that you've made and be happy with them when you're on your own. If that makes sense. And I knew that if I held back my affections for both of my partners, or if I didn't treat them equally, or if I didn't treat them both like parents to our kids, which they both are, in my opinion, then I wasn't doing right by them. And that's who mattered most to me. So that's how we were able to open up about being poly, is just by being poly, by not making it about everybody else. It's not about everybody else. It should be about you and your significant others. It shouldn't be about everybody else. And if they make you feel like it is, I'm so sorry. I know how hard that is. And especially if you're in a situation where you rely on those people, like family members or friends, and they don't quite get it, it can be very hard. And if you ever need somebody to talk to or vent to, I'm here. My husband identifies as pan, pretty much always has. Me and my wife are kind of more demi, like it's more emotion based before anything else. And his family always knew that about him way before we were all together, so I don't think they were too surprised by anything. Um, but yeah, just be true to yourself, be true to your partners, don't worry about anybody else. I think a big step too in getting all of our family to realize that we were very serious and that this wasn't some phase was all of us moving in together, seeing all of us really step up to take care of each other, and be there for each other, just like any monogamous couple they knew, but doing it for each other. That was another huge way to show that, like, we were serious. I hope that answered your question, Myrna. I know I was a little rambly. This is another great question. This person wanted to be anonymous, but I got asked on Instagram, did any of you have any reservations about it all in the beginning? Yes, we did. The me that I am now is very different than the me that was with my husband 12, 13 years ago. In the beginning of our relationship, mine and his, I had a lot of strained relationships before him. He had a bad relationship before me. He had been with lots of people. I had not. He was only the second guy I'd ever been with and the only guy I had wanted to be with. So I was constantly comparing myself to all of his partners from the past. I was very insecure. I was always afraid that he was gonna like leave me for somebody else. The me back then could not have handled being poly because of my own insecurities, of my own concerns and worries, and like worried about tit for tat and things like that. I wouldn't have understood it. I would have been worried it was because I wasn't doing enough. It wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have worked. By the time we started talking more about our sexualities and our relationships and how we felt about things, that took at least 10 years. This wasn't something that it wasn't something that happened overnight. It wasn't something that was instantaneous. It took a lot of introspection on our own to kind of feel this sort of thing out. And then when Ophelia did move in with us and we started, feeling out this polyamorous journey, for lack of a better word, that we were on, even then, it wasn't super easy because I was the first person that Ophelia had ever been with. She hadn't had serious relationships before me. So not only was I her first serious relationship, but she was coming into a relationship that was two people with kids, and it's very different, and she didn't know what to expect. And we were sort of, all of our chemistry was from long distance, and not, it's very different to go from that to living together. And so in the beginning, it was very hard for her in particular to not be jealous, to not have moments of like uncertainty of whether or not this was going to work. And so, yeah, I mean, there was definitely reservations. There was definitely a time period where we had to figure things out. It wasn't super smooth in the beginning, but it did work out, and it's phenomenal now. Early on in our relationship, Ophelia got very, very sick, and she couldn't walk, and her eyesight got messed up, and she was hospitalized for a week, and it was months and months before she could walk again. And we took care of her, and not just me. It was me and Matt. We took care of her, and we showed that like we really showed to her that this wasn't temporary. This wasn't something where we were just doing it for fun. Like, we love her and we care about her, and we showed her that. And over that time when she was healing and things like that, we really all grew closer together, and it really changed things a lot. And I think that was, you know, that really resolved any reservations that anybody had. But if you are in a poly relationship, or you want to be, or you're pursuing it or thinking about it or anything like that, if there's bumps, don't be afraid of them. The biggest thing I can tell you is communicate. Communicate with your partners. Don't worry about trying to word it in a particular way, or being like, oh, but if I say it wrong, they'll take it the wrong way and I'll hurt their feelings. Just communicate. If you waste a lot of time trying to figure out how to say it the best way, you might wait too long, and then you might get too emotional, and then you might not say it at all, or it'll come out even more misconstrued. Just talk to each other. Just talk to each other. Feel it out. And maybe it's not going to work, and that's fine too. Like, it's okay. You don't have to force things to work. Just communicate. So reservations are normal. Communicate. Um, the third question we got, I love this question. I got this question from Ashley Miller on Instagram. She said, I'm polyamorous. Do you have any alternatives for the third partner that the kids can use? I love this question. I love seeing other polyamorous families that have kids, and the kids are super accepting, and they like want to talk to the other partner as if they're a parent. I love that. Things are a little different for us, or will be, because I have recently started transitioning from female to male, and so that'll be another talk that we have with our kids. Um, so it will change for us. But originally, I did give birth to our two kids. So originally, I'm mom, our husband is dad. Um, well, my wife's name is Jean Ophelia. We always call her by her middle name. We always call her Ophelia. But when the kids met her, they met her as Jean. And so the kids didn't understand that her name was Jean, because they knew her name was Ophelia. So when my sons talk about her, they say, my Jean. So, like, my mom, my dad, and my Jean. They think that Jean is a parental title. They think that that's her parental title, is Jean, because it's Isaiah's Jean, Wiley's Jean. And I love it. It's the cutest thing. I love hearing them tell stories about, oh, my Jean took me to school. My Jean did this, my Jean did that. I love it. It's great because her name is one syllable, just like mom and dad. So it's great to pick something that's one syllable, I think. If you don't have a name that's one syllable, or if your partner doesn't feel like my such and such, my Sam, my Alex, my whatever, if they don't feel like that feels enough parental, there's gender neutral options like Ren, which is parent, Ren. I know some gender neutral people that like that as a parental title, and it's different from mom and dad. So my mom, my dad, my Ren. There's options like that. If you are female presenting and you prefer a female title, it's very simple to pick something that's different from mom, like ma and mama, or mommy and mom. A favorite of mine was moms with an S. I don't know why. I've just always liked that. I had another mother figure in my life, and I called her moms versus mom. That's just something I prefer. And with dad, it's even easier because there's dad, papa, pops. There's lots of different names like that. For example, that's probably what I'm going to go with, is something like pops or papa, and Matt will be dad. But that's something that you can play around with. Another great way to address that, if your kids are old enough, is include the kids in the conversation. Ask them how they feel about that partner and what they would like to call them. When kids are growing up, they tend to kind of come across those names on their own. Like, they might choose to say Nana or Granny or Grandma or Grammy with their grandparents. And they're kind of the same with parental figures too. So maybe include them. Ask them what they want to call you. Make them a part of it. Make them feel like a part of the family. That's another great option. I hope that helps answer your question, Ashley. I know that, like I said, my Gene is the cutest thing that my kids say, and I love it. And I think it's funny that they don't understand that, like, it's not a parental title. I love it. So I think this is the last question. We got this question from, I want to say that your name is Ian, but you're from Edinburgh, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. And if it's not, I'm so sorry. He asked, when did the penny drop and you realize you were poly? I'm so sorry to tell you that there wasn't really an aha moment. There wasn't really like a penny drop moment. I have always found myself to be polyromantic, not necessarily polyamorous, in the broader sense of the word. I love people. I love making people happy. Not a people pleaser. That's not what I mean. I find joy in other people's happiness. I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. I love being there for other people. If there was anything I could do to make anybody's day better, I'd, um, or just be there for them. I enjoy that. Um, and after getting closer and closer with my husband and kind of really developing ourselves and like figuring out more about myself and becoming more secure in myself, it made it easier for me to roommates. It made it easier for me to figure out that it was okay to share love. It was okay to want to share that with more people. And it made sense. And it didn't have to be this thing where it was like, well, how could I possibly do these things for other people and they still be as meaningful for my husband? How could I do these things for my wife and they still be as meaningful to him? Like, it was one of those things where I realized it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be a tit for tat. It doesn't have to, everybody loves differently and receives love differently. So, this is a very cheesy way to talk about this, but there's something called the 5 love languages. Um, I know there's acts of service, physical affection. Forgive me, I don't. Oh, I know words of praise is another one. There's just a lot of them. There's 5, but um, some of those mean more to other people than others, and sometimes um, just the way that people love you is different, and it's nice to have the different ways and figure those out and find different ways to show that you care for other people. And I think I've always wanted to do that, and I think I've always enjoyed doing that. So I don't think there was any one particular moment where I realized, oh, I'm poly, or oh, I'm okay with consensual non-monogamy. I don't think there was any one moment of that. I think it was this understanding that um, that was something I could do. And I would say if I had to give it a timeline, I would say um, it literally just took communicating with my husband and developing the friendship that I already had with uh, Ophi to really understand what that meant and what it could be. But it wasn't any one particular situation. It wasn't any one particular moment. I'm sorry, I'm sure that wasn't the answer you wanted to hear. But if you're kind of wondering if you are or if you're not, and you haven't had what you consider a penny drop moment or an aha moment, and you were kind of hoping to get some clues to what to look out for or something like that, or kind of wondering um, what that could be, I wouldn't think of it that way. I wouldn't think of it as, where's my one sign? Where's my one clue that this is something that I could pursue? I would just talk to yourself a little bit, kind of work on your introspection and ask yourself, if I was with somebody, could I be comfortable, genuinely comfortable with them being with somebody else? Could I be genuinely okay with them showing affection to them in different ways than they show me affection? Really figure out what your limits are in regards to your partner, because that will kind of answer your question a little bit. Um, I think it's easier to say, oh, of course I could love two people equally, or three people equally, or four. Of course I could show my affections to multiple people and it'd be fine. That's not the question you should be asking yourself if you want a poly relationship. It's what you're comfortable with your other partners doing, because um, the focus kind of should be on them in a positive way. You need to know you're comfortable with that. For example, with me and my family, there are times when my husband will watch the kids so that me and my wife can go on these adventures together, to go on road trips or go to concerts and go do things that just the two of us like. And in return, there's plenty of times when my wife will watch the kids so that me and my husband can go camping or go shopping to stores that she doesn't like, or do different things together to like build our relationship together. And there's been times when I've watched the kids so that the two of them can go and go on a camping trip or go bond or go do whatever. So it's important to encourage any other relationships your other partners have. That way they'll want to encourage you in your other relationships. So that's more the things you should think about. I wouldn't try and keep an eye out for any particular aha moment or penny drop moment. Um, I think all of our everything regarding us has always been just super organic. It's always been things develop as they go, things change as we go, we learn more as we go, we get better at it as we go. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's not something that's just oh, okay, I get it now. Um, it's time, it's communication, it's introspection. Those are the three biggest things. I hope that answered your question. It probably didn't, and I'm so sorry. But that's definitely a harder question, I think, in terms of, like I said, there just wasn't a moment like that for us. Um, those are the questions that I have for today, and this video is getting pretty long. If you've watched the whole thing, I appreciate you, and you're amazing. And I hope that if you didn't ask one of the questions, that maybe um, it was a question you had and you didn't know you had it. Now you have an answer. If it gave you more questions than answers, feel free to ask those questions in the comments below or send us a DM on Instagram at the Three Beasts, and maybe I'll answer it in another video. But until then, I hope this was helpful.